Hi, you're on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. Subscribe to my channel as well as my Facebook page. There we can chat. The link is in the description of the video. Thank you. Enjoy watching. Story 1. My husband got jealous over the girl he led on for years at our wedding. I, who 25F, got married to my husband, 24M, we'll call him Jim, a week ago after dating for 2.5 years. Jim has a friend called Misha, 22F, who was invited to the wedding. He and Misha have known each other since high school and were close friends, and Misha had a very obvious crush on Jim from what he and others who know them have told me. Jim told me this after I met Misha for the first time and confessed that he leaned into her crush and led her on throughout their high school years and for a little while after, before we got together, because he was struggling with his mental health and he really liked her attention. He seemed genuinely guilty about all of that because he thought Misha was a nice girl and a good friend, and because he showed guilt I didn't feel the need to bring it up or argue about it despite thinking it was a shitty thing to do. Plus, Misha is a nice girl who has never overstepped boundaries and has been nothing but kind and friendly towards me, and I now consider her a friend too. Misha moved away to the city last year and has done really well for herself and has a long-term boyfriend who none of us have met yet, so when it came to sending wedding invites, I told her she was welcome to bring him as her +1. The first red flag came when Jim was weirdly resistant to the idea of Misha bringing her boyfriend, but he excused it on being concerned about the number of guests we invited, and the matter was dropped. When the wedding day came, Misha showed up in this beautiful dress, nothing inappropriate for a wedding, and with her boyfriend on her arm, who I'll admit is a very handsome guy, think a Kit Harington type. She's also lost weight and has a haircut that suits her better, and I thought she looked great. We also found out throughout the night that her boyfriend is very successful and earns more than practically anyone else who attended. Throughout the reception I noticed Jim glaring at Misha and her boyfriend the whole time, and he was really cold and short towards her when she came over to congratulate us and give us a gift. He was also straight up kinda rude to her boyfriend when Misha introduced us to him. When his mom, who's always known and liked Misha, mentioned that she was glad Misha found a great guy and praised her boyfriend for being so nice, Jim snapped that at least she won't be desperate and hung up on me for the rest of her life, which I thought was cruel and uncalled for, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't want to argue at my wedding despite the fact that he frankly sounded bitter. The whole thing has left an awful taste in my mouth, and I can't help but think that Jim got jealous that Misha has found a guy who's honestly quite a catch, who she's clearly very in love with, and is now completely over Jim. Half update: after getting some PMs from people, I decided to go through his phone while he was napping after work, and needless to say this marriage is over. I'll post a real update when I have sorted everything out. Update: hey everyone, I'm posting this here because I said in my last post that I would update when I was able to. Pretty much the day after my original post, I got some PMs from people suggesting that I go through my husband Jim's phone to see if he and Misha were truly just friends before this, and that nothing romantic happened between them that would explain his reaction at the wedding. He always takes a 45-minute nap after work, and so I used that as my opportunity to swipe his phone from where it was charging on his desk so that I could look through it. I've seen him put in his passcode a ton of times, so that wasn't an issue. I didn't find anything in his texts with her, but I know that Jim goes on Instagram a lot, so I checked there too. The immediate red flag was that he'd used an app lock that required a passcode to access Instagram, but the dumbass used the same passcode that he uses to unlock his phone, so I got into that right away. It's his birth year, go figure. And what would you know? I go to his messages with Misha and find messages from him the morning after our wedding telling her how beautiful she'd looked that night, how much he'd missed her, how he felt that her boyfriend being there spoiled his opportunity to catch up with her, and that he was desperate to meet up with her. Misha never replied to these messages, and he sent some more to her later that day. I won't get into what he said because they were very personal insults that were frankly just gross, but just think about the kind of stuff you would read on that nice guys subreddit. Misha left him on read, and when I clicked on her account it appears that she's blocked him. I scrolled through their messages quite far back and I believe nothing romantic has happened between them, wish that was all, but looking into his other conversations on Instagram, I found that he's been messaging other girls on there. They seemed like aspiring Instagram model types from our area. Most of these conversations were just him shooting his shot and getting left on read, but others had evolved into flirting and 2 of them resulted in sexting, and the most embarrassing part of all? The nudes he was sending to these women weren't even of him. I know what his body looks like and he doesn't have chiseled abs and isn't that well endowed. I think he must have found a man's profile on some adult website and used those pictures, just cropping the face out. These 2 conversations happened in the past 6 months. I ended up texting his mom and his brother from my phone asking them to come and pick him up from the apartment, and then I went to wake him up. I told him that I knew about the girls he was messaging on Instagram, that he needed to pack a bag and get the hell out before I started throwing his stuff out onto the street and causing a scene. He started crying and begging me not to kick him out and swore that they were just messages and that he would never actually cheat on me, but I don't believe him for a second. Then he had the nerve to tell me that he didn't want me to tell anyone else about what he'd done, but I had left the room and started ignoring him by that point. He left with his mom and brother and is staying there from what I know. I've blocked him on everything for the time being until I'm ready to tell him that I'm seeking annulment. Thankfully, where I'm from, you can get one almost no questions asked as long as you haven't been married for longer than 30 days, and I've already looked into the process. Haven't really left my apartment at all this week, and I've been calling in sick to work because I don't feel like I can face people. I'm just so embarrassed that I've wasted over 2 years on this man and that I married him in the first place. I don't feel like I can even talk to people about this, so posting here has helped, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words, advice, and support. I might reach out to Misha when the dust has settled, but I think I'll need to build up some courage for that. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. Story 2.OOP finds out the truth about her mother. When I was 13, my mom and dad had a divorce. My mom had always been dull and uninterested in me ever since I could remember, so me and her weren't that close compared to me and my dad. During the divorce, I was asked to choose where I wanted to live, and I chose my dad. My mom had me on weekends, and during those weekends I kind of ignored her or was mean to her. My dad told me she was the one that asked for a divorce, and in my mind she was ruining our perfect family. After like 2 months or a bit more of her picking me up, I told her something really on the lines of her not deserving my dad and her being a lazy, useless bitch. After that day, she did not bother picking me up. I thought she left me, and at the time, I resented her for it. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. I am now 17. My dad and aunt have a bad relationship, but me and her are good. We were talking, and I was saying some bad things about my mother, and my aunt looked at me and told me to stop there. She then proceeded to tell me that you are old enough to understand now, and told me that my dad used to beat my mom. He abused her mentally and physically, and it left my mom with severe depression, which is why she slept a lot and dissociated a lot. I could not believe it. Could the man that bought me my dream car on my 16th birthday be someone that abused my mom? But then I remembered my mom frequently injuring herself. I used to wake up in the morning to see my mom with a broken wrist or her hand in a cast, then a month later she would have a cast on her leg. Then there were times I would get something while she was showering and see bad bruises. And she would just say that it was from hitting her stomach against the kitchen table. Then I would remember the times my dad would call my mom lazy and useless, and how my mom would just sit there silently, looking at her food. My aunt told me my mom did try to take me away from my dad, but my dad is really rich and he knew I would choose him, and that my mom is the reason she is still in contact with her brother. She wanted to cut him off, but my mom begged her to look out for me. Then my aunt told me that the last time she visited me, she tried to commit suicide and was admitted to a psych ward for a month. I realized that I was my father's daughter. I said the same thing Dad always said to her. And hearing that from me must have gut-wrenching for her. I feel horrible, I am horrible. I wanted to talk to my mom and apologize, but my aunt told me that I shouldn't see her because I could trigger her again and that she was happy. I searched for her on social media and found her happily married with 2 stepdaughters. I know this because after stalking her page, I stalked her daughter's page and found a picture of my mom and her stepdaughter with a caption talking about how blood does not make a family. I am a really bad person. I am a horribly self-centered, nasty bitch. My dad is on a business trip, and even if he comes back, I don't think I can confront him. A part of me still loves him. Update. Thanks for all the kind words. After reading some of your comments, I thought that a letter expressing how I did not mean the things I said when I was younger and apologizing was a good idea. My aunt did not want to send the letter. She told me that she has fault in this, but I resemble my father. That she didn't see it until she saw the way I talked about my mother, that I was reflection of him. She said my mother worked hard to get to this place and she does not want me forming a relationship that could jeopardize that right now, that she doesn't believe I can unlearn everything I was taught within 2 weeks. My dad travels a lot. I just realized me and him rarely talk, so avoiding him has not been hard. He mostly just brought me stuff to make me happy. I don't think he will even notice if I cut contact with him. Comment. My aunt isn't my mom's sister, she was her sister-in-law. She told me that her brother has a big victim complex. That he was nice to my mom at first, but when my mom fell out love with him and asked for a divorce, he went for revenge because he thought she was a gold digger, and in his mind he not the abuser, he the victim. My aunt has a similar experience with my mom. He is so messed up. I can't even look at him or think of him without being sick to my stomach. I can't honestly believe he was my hero for the longest time. And the worst part is that I look at myself and see him. Getting therapy won't be an issue. I literally have unlimited amount in allowance. Update. I gathered the confidence to chat with my mom on Facebook, and we set up a call. She actually apologized to me first. She told me she was sorry for not being the mom I needed, that she did not mean to neglect me, that she wished she was more involved in my life, that she could walk me to park and we could color together. I used to beg her to walk me to park and color with me instead of the nanny when I was much younger, and that was one of her biggest mistakes in life. She said that she was glad I reached out, that she thought I hated her. I told her it was okay, and I was sorry for the way I treated her when I was younger. I did not mean it. We talked a lot at first. It was awkward, but it got comfortable. I even talked to her stepdaughters on the phone. They were nice too. I asked her why she did not tell me, and she said that whether I chose her or not, I couldn't stay with her. She signed a prenup and was left with nothing. She did not have a job for like 14 years, and she didn't even have a residence. She did not want my home life to be difficult. We decided to visit each other when I go to her state to visit colleges. I don't have her address, so I could not send her a letter. I told my dad, I know a lot of you warned me against it, but we were eating next to each other, and after talking to my mom, I had to be sure. He had raised me my whole life, so I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, or at least see some remorse. I asked him if he used to hit mom when she was here, and I lied and said that I remember him hitting her once. He told me that I knew how my mom was and that she needed it here and there. I did not know what to say, so I just finished up and went to my room. His admitting to it felt so much more real. He did not even look sorry, he just got back to eating and using his phone. And I have started getting therapy. Hearing my mom tell me she loved me and her showing me that she wants to hang out with energy in her eyes makes me really emotional and happy. And sorry about the title, noticed it last minute. Thanks for the advice. If it was not for some of you, I would have just listened to my aunt and not bothered her at all. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, there are a lot of interesting stories ahead of you.